For those who don't know, I'm an A's fan. So, of course, the one rumor of possible weather problems had to be in the A's game. But you know what? The Padres are, last time I checked, have the best record in the MLB. San Diego.
Yeah, they do. Are you living
Crushing it.
in? Are you living like near the Oakland area? Like, can you give us a weather report?
I'm not. I'm in San Diego. Um, so
So you
yeah,
don't even know what the
I'm
weather's
just, I'm just
like?
an A's, I'm just an A's fan. But I mean, I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not going to opening day. So that would be cool. But I'm in San Diego. I can tell you that there's no. I don't think the Padres are playing today, but the weather here is fantastic.
I think NBA tonight is going to be. I think there might be some overlay on some places because everyone's so focused on baseball. Obviously, baseball overlaid pretty big earlier today. I think the same contests are smaller than normal for basketball, especially for the slates that we have. But I think that there's going to still be some overlay on some certain sites,
Yeah,
and
especially this morning because what happens is the money from the MLB contest is going to be locked up until after the games are over. And the overlay on certain sites was so intensive this morning that you saw a very heavy amount of $109 entries hit the MLB contest this morning. I think what was the DK contest that they had, the 100K 109? I don't know the name of it, but it was I think I saw about 300 entries hit that contest in a period of about 30 minutes. So that's going to mean someone's bankroll was intelligently so put in a lot of additional MLB lineups that they probably weren't planning on. So that could be very smart, especially with what happened with Strasburg early. But that being said, the money is tied up, and that could trickle down to NBA overlay later tonight. So it's good to do that. And but I personally, of course, say that MLB is far from over. We have another slate in Elite in the next like 30 minutes, and we have one after that at 6:30 that we're going to be drafting for after this. So there's still a lot of MLB. NBA is fun. There's no reason to hate on basketball.
oh, adding. I'm gonna add to Scott, and I accidentally
Well,
put Grant on hold. I'm not even sure. Grant, you didn't even realize I put you on hold, did you?
I did.
I don't know. For some reason, it didn't do a dual call. It only did.
I was very confused. I was saying things that were useful.
Okay, well, we're gonna get Scott on, and you both can say things that are useful. For those that don't know,
Okay.
Scott is the one that won $100,000 2 weeks ago, or not even 2 weeks ago. I guess it was a week ago.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I
oh
want to throw it out there that we combined for like 100,000 dollars and like 100,000, like 200 or $300
yeah,
on last Wednesday. So I can go like Stacey King and MJ. You know, if you combine all the hosts, I think that the winnings are pretty high.
ballin'. Scott, how does it feel to be the winner of a $100,000 tournament?
Um, I mean, a lot better than to be the loser, I guess. But
Oh, Scott, stop it!
uh,
Where'd you get this
I,
funny?
I, it hasn't really sunk in yet. Still, like I've been so busy with work and stuff, I haven't even like. And apparently, chasing overlay in baseball today, I've just been so busy. I haven't had a chance to celebrate or anything really yet either. It'll sink in eventually, I think.
Yeah, so basically we have a lot of NBA games tonight. We're talking a little bit about like kind of the industry goes. Obviously, you work for DraftDay. Do you think, like, as far as the pulse of the industry, do you think that today is like the day when people, like the non MLB guys, like the diehards will still play NBA, but do you think for like the grinders, the all around DFS players, this is like kind of the beginning of the end for NBA?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of always is. I got like a little more action than I usually do on a Sunday yesterday because I think we had some MLB guys playing in NBA. I don't know. I think it'll be about the same as it's been for like the last few weeks. It always gets slow like around March, and then towards the end of March when all these scratches and stuff start happening, people just give up. And I mean, it creates overlay in smaller games and tougher games. So it is tough, but like it's a good slate tonight. And like you mentioned, there might be some overlay on some of these sites with people having baseball money locked up. So I don't know. It'll be fun still.
Yeah. I'm going to bring on Derek Carty, the guy that writes for us, and he's just going to talk a little bit about basically the games that the rest of the games that we have going on. So hopefully he will be on with us shortly. Derek, are you there? Maybe? No, he's not. Okay, let's just go ahead and cover the news that we have for tonight. Hopefully he can join us later. Oh, he said it came through his computer. As far as news goes, Scott, what's the biggest news that you have tonight? It seems like this is where you want to know the rotations.
I can no longer hear anything.
Yeah, Scott is muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah. Did you unmute
Okay.
yourself?
Yes. All the Miami guys are doubtful that have been out. DeMar Carroll's going to play against Philly. Those are the two things that look like they're kind of set in stone. Isaiah Thomas, Anthony Davis, Eric Gordon, all questionable. I would guess that none of those guys play if I had to guess. And then Blake Griffin's the one that seems more 50-50 than the rest of these.
Yeah, we'll talk about Matt Barnes in a second because Matt Barnes is going to be an absolute stud, I think. Derek, are you there with us? Maybe? No? Okay. We'll try to get Derek on later. How's that? As far as the...
Can you hear me?
As far as the games, the rest of the games tonight, I think that what's going to take place is that you're going to have some baseball players like that are just kind of caught up in the moment that want to play. So I do think that there's going to be some smaller stakes like cash games action that you can put out there that you might get some fish to take. You also have maybe some overlay. I do think there is the chance to have fun with NBA these last few weeks. Also on FanDuel, you've got this Friday the big tournament. Is it 2 or 3 million?
2, I think.
1.2 million. How nuts is Friday going to be, Scott?
Yeah, I was about to say, man, you're saying the NBA season's almost over. We have our biggest tournament this week.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is transitioning that way, but Friday's going to be a mess with the first full day of Major League Baseball for like a Friday where they have big qualifiers, and then you have this FanDuel qualifier, or FanDuel 1.2 million. So, I mean, it's going to be an absolute mess with people that are going to be out. So, definitely going to be interesting tonight, or on Friday, to see what happens there. As you can see, we're just kind of shooting the bull, having fun with the show. As far as top plays tonight, Scott, are you still writing the day before tomorrow, or since you won the 100,000, is that over?
I don't have one for today, but we just had a lot of stuff going on at DraftDay that I haven't had a chance to lately. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to do much of anything for like the last 4 days or so. So, but yeah, my top play in there tonight, I just wrote the 3 locks. My top one's Chris Paul tonight.
Chris Paul went off on Saturday, and I basically did not have him anywhere, and I was sad. I did have Blake Griffin, though, so that was good. And then I also had Anthony Davis whenever he got hurt. So
lots of good things for you.
Yeah. And luckily, I didn't have Brandon Jennings, but it didn't matter because I still had Josh Smith. Like this is what we're talking about. Just a crazy world of sports. But yeah, I mean, Chris Paul, I think, is going to be probably the heaviest owned player that we have going tonight. That game is only a 3.5-point game, but it is the highest over/under. Like, there's going to be a lot. And I mean, you think that if there was ever a game for Kevin Love, this might be it. Please tell me you have love for Kevin Love, Grant.
There's no reason not to. He's in a pretty good place tonight. He was a little bit disappointing yesterday, unfortunately. But besides that, I think you can't look necessarily backwards. You got to look forward. And he's going to be in a place where if Griffin plays, it's still going to be a situation where
I don't think Griffin's going to play.
even if he did play, it still would be probably a minutes limit, I guess. And if the Clippers were to get up, I know they're only favored by 3.5, but I could see the Clippers getting up in this game. Spread's not always the tell-all, and if they were to get up in this game, I think that you'd probably see good matchups, and Griffin would sit. So I think Griffin probably does sit, and it's going to not be a great defensive situation for the LA Clippers. Griffin's not a great defender anyway. It just gets worse if he's out, though. In terms of their front court depth isn't great. They've been put in a place where they've got to play. I think that they've been to play a lot. I've seen Big Baby in the rotation a reasonable amount, and you had to set up for disciplinary reasons. But have you guys actually seen how terrible shape he's in? Like,
He's fat.
It's embarrassing. Big Baby looks embarrassing right now for the Clippers, even when he does play. It's pretty terrible.
Yeah, he is. He is fat. Scott. He got sent out of the game to the locker room. But Doc Rivers said that it is only a 1-game thing. What happens with this rotation if Blake Griffin misses? Do you move? Do you play small basically with DJ, with DeAndre Jordan out there, or do you roll out Big Baby for extended minutes?
I'm going to guess that they start Davis and Griffin and then end up with Matt Barnes playing a ton of 4.
Yeah.
That's what they did after they sent Big Baby out of the game the other night. I think Barnes played all of his minutes at power forward after that. And then they used Crawford and Collison both at the same time, which is probably their best lineup without Griffin. The 3 point guards, basically, and then Barnes and DeAndre Jordan. So I would expect to see those 5 guys play the most minutes if Griffin misses.
Yeah, I really think that Barnes is going to be the guy. Barnes, DeAndre, and Chris Paul, all from that.
You can definitely stack the Clippers today. If Griffin's out, it would help a lot of people's opportunities. Jordan a lot, obviously. I mean, it's stating the obvious, but DeAndre Jordan would probably play more minutes. I don't see them giving him much time off. So DeAndre Jordan becomes a fantastic, point per dollar play. Maybe not the top play on the board, but I think you're overthinking it if you don't think DeAndre Jordan has a better game because Griffin's out. And then I think all the rest of the guys, because they're going to have to play smaller, do get upgraded a tad and would probably have been good plays anyway because Minnesota plays pretty fast-paced. So I think the Clippers are a good team to look at for value tonight, although if Big Baby starts and you get that news, please don't take the bait and put him in your lineup because he's really bad. I mean, you can do it, but I think that it's going to be something that if you haven't watched him yet, you might not know what you're getting himself into. He's not the guy that signed the $4 million a year contract with the Magic originally. They waived him, and he got waived off the Magic. So whatever that's worth to you. I just don't think he'll play that many minutes. He doesn't look like he's in very good shape. He's not in good physical condition. If he starts, I don't know how many minutes he actually winds up getting in this game.
I don't think he gets over 20.
Yeah.
I think 15 to 18 maybe. Going over the list of news, here are the players that I don't think are going to play tonight. Dwayne Wade, of course. I don't think Rondo has already said that he is going to be out.
He's doing commentary. It's awesome. I was watching the game yesterday with on the Celtics feed with some of the guys in LA, and he is actually doing commentary tonight. So he's definitely not playing, but it's kind of a cool thing.
And then you have the following guys that are questionable: Mayo, Pat, Kyle Korver, Byron Mullins, and Anthony Davis, Isaiah Thomas, Eric Gordon, and then you have Blake Griffin. There's a lot of names there. There's a lot of
games tonight.
Important, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's 10 games, but there are a lot of important guys with there. So there's going to be a ton of value. So you want to take the lock. Dirty in the chat said that there is going to be, or Kevin Love did say that he wasn't feeling like his normal self and that he might be getting sick. So that might be something you want to monitor tonight. But as far as some of the value goes, looking at this Miami game, you've got Wade and Allen both probably going to be out for tonight. Then you have LeBron. So, I mean, what do we do with this Miami team? Is it like play Bosch basically? You think LeBron plays tonight, Scott?
If Wade and all those other guys are out, I think there's a decent chance that he plays tonight. I don't know if I'd want to count on it unless he's actually declared active, but it just seems like a game he's going to play.
It probably will be announced too. Oh, great!
Yeah, I think it's the second set of games, like 7:30 maybe.
I just completely hung up the phone on somebody. Sorry, but I don't know. I just didn't want it to ring anymore. I think it might have been an automated call, but someone might think I'm a dick. But that's okay. It just bothers me. Every time I go work out of this office, that happens.
Sorry,
my
Scott.
phone.
What were you saying? Scott, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I was listening to Grant. I don't know. LeBron is a pretty early game tonight, so we should have a good idea of whether he's playing or not. He'll probably be out there warming up before lineups lock, so usually he announces that fairly early.
Yeah, that game is an early game. So you look at most of the games tonight, there are early games. Like there's not. You've got the Denver game against Memphis, which is kind of a blah game, and then you have the Knicks at Utah. Who knows what's going to happen in that game? But that's like the latest game that there is. So the majority of the news is going to be out before lineups lock. Even the Anthony Davis, Isaiah Thomas, Eric Gordon, Blake Griffin stuff. So, I mean, I think that you're going to get most of your news out before there. So value plays are concerned, you've got Damari, who they said is going to play. You've got Jeff Adrian, who a lot of people rostered, and he didn't exactly give them what they wanted. Amari, a safe play, but he is on a back-to-back. Henry Sims going up against Atlanta. No Arnett Moultrie. He got suspended for drugs. Not sure that means anything, but Byron Mullins also questionable. So if Mullins doesn't play, you're going to have a lot of Sims, as much as you can handle, basically. And then
the Sixer guys are minutes machines right now. Like that's even in they're blowing them out. They let Michael Carter Williams keep playing there. I think that now I know. I didn't even know what would happen when the Sixers blew a team out until Saturday, but now I do. That was a big thing we didn't really ever anticipate. But now that we know, the truth of the matter is that those guys will keep playing in any scenario. MCW and Thad Young. He got hurt for a little bit and then came back in. Like I don't know. I've fallen in love with the duo of Sixers players. Now Sims is jumping in, but I'm very quickly falling in love now with MCW and Thad Young. Like it's a beautiful thing. Like in all the unpredictability of the NBA right now, these guys play like 35 minutes a game, no matter what happens, if not more.
Okay, here's some questions. Scott, what's wrong with Tyreek Evans? Why can't he produce?
I mean, I don't think he's been like terrible or anything. He had one tough game against the Spurs where he literally had no one to play with. No Anthony Davis, no Eric Gordon. I mean, when Brian Roberts is your second best player on the floor with you, I mean, the whole defense is going to be focused on you, and there isn't anyone to finish your passes. The game before, he had 58 fantasy points. So, I mean, Sacramento's a lot closer to Utah in matchup than San Antonio. I'm hoping that the Pelicans get someone back tonight to help him. Otherwise, he's just going to constantly see double teams and all the help he can see. So, I mean, as long as Davis remains out, he's going to see all the defensive attention of every team, whether Gordon's back or not. So you've just got to decide whether you want to take the usage rate with the low efficiency or you want to look somewhere else for a lower usage rate and a better efficiency score.
Yeah. At the shooting guard position, if I have to play Brian Roberts, I'm going to be really sad. But he is in play, especially if all those guys are out. Okay, next question. Andre Drummond against the Bucks. Yay or nay? Grant, you say...
I don't know. I'm so scared of like the. I watched the Pistons play the Sixers. You know, watched pretty much the entirety of that game. One of the best things I've seen in weeks. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't think Drummond's playing hard right now. Like I've watched his last 2 games now, and I just don't think he's playing. I don't know what's going through his head. He just doesn't. I was just watching him get out rebounded by the Birdman on. I was sweating out Drummond on. I think it was Friday, and I'm watching the Birdman just take every rebound from that guy.
That's because the Birdman's awesome.
It's not what you want to see. I don't know the Bucks. I'm not sure who's going to do anything on Milwaukee, but I just. They rotate all the guys, and he's out of the game sometimes, and Monroe's playing really well. I don't know. It's really hard for me to get a read in the Pistons, and with 10 games tonight, I'm probably not going to try to roll out Pistons today. And I do think it's a good day to play NBA because I just think that there's a lot of factors that are going to make this a very nice night for NBA fantasy, but I just think that there are a lot of other options than Detroit, and I think it might end up all the guys in Detroit can be a trap. Because all I know, Brandon Jennings is in his revenge game. He's playing like crap, but he's playing the Bucks, and for all I know, he takes like 40 shots and gets like 40 fantasy points. But I'm not a guy that probably wants to find out about any of them.
Scott, your take.
Josh Smith is probably my favorite one out of all of the Pistons guys tonight.
Scott,
I mean,
why?
He's really up and down, but I don't know. I don't particularly like any of them. I think the Pistons are absolutely terrible right now, and I would do my best to avoid them entirely. But I think Josh Smith has got the best price out of all these guys.
So bad. I mean, they're just really bad. The Bucks might be slightly more worth targeting, And, I mean, people are talking about the night revenge game. I think Raymond Sessions against Jennings is a good matchup. He's getting a much higher. Yep. The thing is that Brandon Knight's value, and we all know the Brandon Knight love affair I've had if anyone watches my shows the last, month or two. But the problem is Sessions showed up. Nate Walters doesn't actually play point guard. He's not very good. They came out of there, and Sessions starts now. Now Sessions really plays point guard, which takes away a little bit of Knight's usage. So I'd say that Sessions is probably in playing for the Bucks, maybe Adrian. And some of the Bucks players have put up sneaky value. Pachulia's had some nice games kind of mixed in there recently. I keep an eye on Milwaukee because of how bad the Pistons are. I think that Sessions, though, is the guy I look at in the game and say, all right, that guy's going to be cheaper than all the Detroit players and probably is more safe.
Yeah. Knight, Adrian,
take that for what it's worth.
All those guys. As far as Hawks against the Sixers, like we said, we got DeMarre Carroll. MacArthur wants to know about Antich. Going up against the Sixers tonight, you've got Millsap, who might be in play, could possibly dominate. But on the other side, like you said, Grant, I mean, Thad Young and MZW, I mean, they're getting their points. So, Scott, thoughts on the basically this Atlanta Sixers game?
I like almost everyone in this game. I think Thad Young is a good play, like Grant has mentioned before. Michael Carter-Williams is a pretty good play. Jeff Teague's price is way down, and he's had 2 pretty decent games after the game he got benched in. Millsap's price is under $8K on both FanDuel and DraftKings, I believe. He's down to $12K on DraftDay. And he hasn't been bad. He's just been kind of middling out in the 30 to 35 range, which isn't going to kill you, and I would expect him to be better than that against the Sixers tonight. And then even some of the fringe plays in this game, if Shelvin Mack is starting again, he's really cheap against the Sixers. He would probably play backup point guard minutes in a blowout also. Really anyone in this game is in play based on their prices. DeMarre Carroll is awfully cheap everywhere.
He's a lot, too. That's the thing about Carroll, and I'm not sure. He's coming up an injury, so that's the one thing making me nervous about Carroll. But he does... Players that do a lot, like he does, can be good in fast-paced games like the Sixers because there's going to be a lot of opportunities for stats. So he's at a pretty reasonably priced point. I think that this might be a good night for Teague because Teague's been I don't want to say underpriced, not playing very well, but he's been priced low throughout the industry since he hasn't been playing that well, and this is probably the best matchup he's going to get. So I don't know if it's a great play, but I've been using Teague. That's the problem. I find myself using him when I see his price low. So I could see myself using Teague tonight. So at least I might as well mention that he's viable, but he's not a guy that – he's not the first guy in my lineup, and he's also a player that probably if I do fit in today that I wouldn't be ecstatic about, but I think he could be in a good place.
All right. Going over some of these baseball games, it seems like – kind of wacky world out there. Phillies leading Texas 9-7. The Mets are leading Washington 5-4 at the top of the ninth. 3-3 and 0-0 in the Cubs Pirates game and Royals Tigers game. So you've got some potential extra innings games there, and then Baltimore leading Boston 1-0 top of the third. Seems like kind of bizarro world with both Verlander and Stress getting shelled early, Cliff Lee getting shelled. So it's an interesting
first game of the year, though, man. That's the thing. It's just like people haven't settled in yet. It's the first like actual baseball game.
I know,
like,
but I'm just ready
all
for
it
Tommy
is.
G to spit out skill game later on tonight. I can't wait for his rants about how MLB is a more of a skill game than NBA. But we can talk about that sometime later. If Isaiah Thomas does not play, well, I guess, Scott, I'll ask you this. Do you think Isaiah Thomas and Anthony Davis play tonight? Like, does your gut tell you they play?
I'd be pretty surprised if either one of them played.
Me too. I would agree. So I think because of that, you've got Ray, who still is in play there for the Kings. You've also got Cousins, who kind of went off against Oklahoma City. He didn't go off so much, but last game he did go off. I think is a good option there at center. If you had to choose between Cousins and Noah, who would you play?
I mean, Noah's just a lot safer cash game play, but I mean, Cousins has killed the Pelicans over the last 2 or 3 years. I think even this year he's averaging
who's gonna cover Cousins?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only problem you ever have with Cousins is that you need him to get out of the first quarter without 2 fouls, because otherwise he's in foul trouble the entire game. Like, it never fails. If he gets 2 fouls in the first quarter, he's gonna have a bad game. If he has 1 foul or 0 fouls in the first quarter, he's going to have a huge game in matchups like this. Most of the time, it doesn't even matter what the matchup is. He just needs to be on the floor for 35 minutes to get his 50 fantasy points.
We have SF Sports in the chat. For those listening, says, just letting everyone know I live in San Francisco and has been downpouring with thunder for the past 45 minutes. Late swap for Oakland players may need to happen. That game doesn't start for another 6 hours, but if the rain's already starting and it's not going to let up, then that's not good. Hopefully they can get that game in. All right, back to NBA. This is going to be like a weird kind of transition because you got MLB and NBA. So for the next week, for the next week, you're going to have. I just had my antenna of my TV fall down. It's okay. I'm okay. You're going to have like hybrid shows, and then we'll start going into more of the baseball shows, and then obviously we're going to have, like we talked about, some elite shows where it's just NBA playoff basketball. So I think it'll be good for that. As far as Anthony Davis being out tonight in this game, I think Aminu is going to get a lot of action, and I think that he is, when Anthony Davis is out, I think he's becoming kind of a safe play there, especially at that small forward spot. So I don't have a problem with rostering him. He seems like a safe play. However, if I had to choose between Aminu and Carroll, it would be a no-brainer to choose to go with Damari tonight. So that's kind of where I'm leaning on as far as small forward goes. Scott, as far as like the positions go, like where do you want to spend tonight?
Power
forward? Center?
I mean, I'm probably, like on sites where I have to play 2 small forwards, I'm probably going to make sure I get 2 small forwards I feel really comfortable with. And then I'm going to spend on Chris Paul just about everywhere, so I guess point guard probably falls into that category for me also. And then after that, it gets kind of tricky. Do you take the value like in the mid-range with Jeff Teague? Do you go all the way down to McCollum if Isaiah Thomas is out like we're expecting? Point guard's going to be a really tough position today. I think I'm probably going to try and, depending on what Carroll's price is everywhere, I'm probably going to try and spend on at least 1 small forward, even if it's just like up to Josh Smith maybe. I just don't feel really comfortable about any of the small forwards in like that mid-range until you get to Carroll.
The value plays at point guard could be really good tonight, though, depending on what happens. That's the biggest
definitely.
problem. That's the problem with Chris Paul tonight. Like that's why I'd have a lot of issues putting Chris Paul in my lineup. Is that at point guard? Not just like low value. Like low value, you got like Douglas at 30. I think Tony Douglas playing good fantasy basketball with all these guys out right now. He's minimum salary. McCallum's at 41. It's tough for me to get much more comfortable with guys that cheap. So it's kind of hard. Even above that, like you got
Sessions
Teague at
on
66.
FanDuel.
I'm talking about FanDuel right now. Like Teague's at $6,600, which is like for playing the Sixers, that's low. And then you have Sessions at 58. So there's just like so many guys I'd like to fit in at point guard that Chris Paul, I almost would rather spend on LeBron if I knew he was playing to fill that small forward spot. Or at center, Cousins is expensive, but man, that's a good matchup. So there's it's a lot of, that's my problem. It depends on the site. Like there's a lot of positional flexibility, obviously. That's going to be helpful today but there's a lot of, like, I always love value point guards because the opportunities, like, Tony Douglas is not that good of a basketball player, but if everybody's out, he got like 17 and 24 maybe his last game, so he's going to be really, really cheap everywhere. We didn't talk about him earlier, which is why I just used this opportunity to mention that Douglas is a guy I've loved since everybody's been out. They have to play him minutes.
Yep.
Chalmers is the guy I have to watch, though. If he's still out, then Douglas becomes a value again.
Yeah, I definitely played Douglas on Friday and then Cole on Saturday. I
made that same brilliant move, Dave.
I got him mixed up. But I do think that Douglas he kind of showed himself to be the superior option to Norris Cole. Here's where I am kind of stuck on tonight is shooting guard. I think small forward actually is pretty easy for me, at least. Barnes is pretty much a lock for me, and then you have either Carroll or even Jeff Adrian or Aminu, like we talked about. I mean, I think those low to mid small forwards are plenty. Shooting guard, especially on non-multi-position eligibility sites, is where I am struggling because, you almost have to pay up for Tyreek Evans. I guess my shooting guard would be like your small forward for me, Scott. The other shooting guard, I'm not sure. Maybe Kyle Korver going up against the Sixers, but I don't feel good about playing Kyle Korver tonight. Like, any value shooting guards out there you guys see?
It's an ugly position on FanDuel today. I think that DeRozan is with everyone out in Miami, like you could go with all the other value everywhere else. Like I wouldn't criticize someone for going with Evans and DeRozan and just taking the two most expensive players there that are both viable players. But if you look down, I almost just looking at it, my gut feeling would be if you're playing cash games to take the top two guys on the board. There are other value players everywhere else. Like DeRozan and Tyreek are not bad plays. They're going to get a lot of opportunities. But, I guess if you look down, nothing I feel terribly confident in. Like Morrow, I'd rather go with one of the value point guards than Morrow. But, maybe Morrow.
I don't think Morrow's in play anymore since Rivers
and Roberts are back.
I'm just saying, there's not a lot of, I don't know where you look.
I'd probably take a guy,
Bellinelli.
I'd probably take a guy like Giannis or whatever in that game against Detroit. It could be a blowout either way. It's going to be a sloppy game. He was playing really well against the Lakers the other night before he got hurt. And then he didn't play very well the game after that, but it was also against the Heat, and he still played 22 minutes. If he's getting in the mid-20s in minutes in a game like this one against the Pistons, I think he's as good a punt play as anyone at a shooting guard spot.
Yeah. And this is the kind of the time of the season where you think that they would get some of these guys some minutes.
He was going to play about 35 minutes in that game against the Lakers before he got hurt early in the fourth.
Yeah. So that's interesting. If Korver doesn't play, Shelvin Mack certainly is in play. And on the sites where you can roster him at that shooting guard spot, that's where I think that the other sites, all the other sites are going to be a lot easier because you're not locked into that shooting guard. You can get some hybrid point guard shooting guards. Sessions is a guy. Shelvin Mack is a guy.
I think it's an advantage, though. I look at that as an advantage on FanDuel tonight because I really strongly believe that Evans and DeRozan are not bad plays, and I feel like a lot of people might shy away from taking those two guys to get cute, but I'm pretty confident. I haven't run a spreadsheet, but I'm pretty confident that's probably your safest points per dollar to take the top two guys at shooting guard, based on everything else that's on the board today as far as value goes. There's so many guys at every other position that you can fit in your cap, but why try to get too cute? You can just put those two guys in there. Yeah, they're both in good places. Evans is playing. Evans is playing fucking. Sorry, I shouldn't use it. There we go. Plays Davis. He's playing Sacramento in a revenge game, by the way, which we didn't even mention. And DeRozan's playing his matchups. Who starts at shooting guard? James Jones. Maybe LeBron covers him, but it's not. It's a very depleted Heat team. It's not like this is slated for a blowout. It's a 5.5 point spread, even in Miami. So DeRozan's super high usage, scores a bunch. Those are two plays, and I just feel like people will try to fit in value, but there's so much value today. We mentioned a billion options everywhere else. So I think that can be used to an advantage of somebody if they decide to go that route, but we'll see.
Ariza is going to play today. You also have in the chat Al Jefferson versus Washington, and Nick asked, the Italian Stallion is a viable punt with Green still sidelined. Thoughts on Al Jefferson, though, Scott?
I mean, he's just a man.
This is where you get to blush.
I mean, you're getting the same thing from him every game. It's why, he's kind of unplayable on Draft Street at times because his price never really dips back down. You're getting the same thing every night. They're going to feed him in the post most of the game. He's going to take about 20 shots. He's going to grab around 10 rebounds. He's a safer option than Cousins with a little bit less upside is the way I would look at it. But outside of FanDuel, I think you can get Noah for cheaper everywhere, and that's probably the way I would go.
That's why
Boston showed yesterday. The only thing I'd be worried is that I think some of the other Bulls bigs played well yesterday.
Yeah, at least they did.
I have a Boozer shirt on, for the record. I got this on sale. A Boozer jersey shirt. It's on sale for good reason at the Reebok store.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not that surprising that it was on sale.
I got discounted twice. They wanted to get rid of it. I had to take it.
So that's why I think that you want to spend on your big men, because you've got Noah, you've got Cousins, you've got Al Jeff, you've got Zebo, who's a pretty good price at a few different places. You have Drummond, who's a volatile play but could do work against Milwaukee. Let's see, who's the
DeAndre Jordan you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, DeAndre Jordan, who we mentioned earlier. So I think that I agree with you, Scott, about Chris Paul. It's for me, it's Chris Paul and then three big men that I like. I don't think you have to go cheap tonight on big men. I think you can go cheap on 1 point guard. Maybe some on multi-position eligibility sites you can go cheap on the point guard shooting guard hybrids there for shooting guard, and then middle average small forward. So I think
Henry Sims though is a relatively cheaper.
Sims is the one guy that I might come down for and pay, especially if we get some sort of news about Byron Mullins being out. If Sims is going to get 35 minutes tonight, then you have to at least consider him.
A good value.
I really hope we get one game of Byron Mullins getting 35 minutes this year. I miss those days.
The Bobcats days?
Yeah, when he would just shoot 12 threes every game, and he'd just be so excited that he made 3 of them.
Who was the other center that started with him? Or power forward?
Who was that? Was it Biombo?
It might, it was Bismack.
Now he plays 7 minutes a game and still manages to accumulate 5 fouls.
Those were the good old days. Do you have a rapid fire listed on DraftDay?
I believe we do.
All right. Well, let's get over there to DraftDay and hit up the rapid fire. I was 1 pick away from winning the rapid fire max on Friday, and it was my gut play. I wanted Love over Anthony Davis, and everyone told me not to, so I didn't play him. My fault.
They never listen to you.
I
They
know.
never listen to you.
Question: I've never actually tried this, but could you multi-entry the max? So like, are you allowed to do that, or
No,
you can
it's
play 2 entries?
one each per slate.
I didn't think so, but I was curious because that would have been a scenario in which you could have probably if that was possible.
Yeah.
It's more to like cover us against scratches than it is like to prevent people from like entering a bunch of different max lineups, because like that wouldn't really be that bad. It's just like if you could enter a million, like people would just keep entering until we took down a scratch, which could be like a half hour sometimes. So
Well, like I know Star Street's got their pick 5 that you can play like different lineups at different levels. But from my experience, like the more you try to mix up things, the worse.
the more you lose, basically. Yeah.
Because there are so many. I mean, when you think about just the math part of it, there are so many options that you want to just go with the optimal one. This one's going to be a fun one though. DeMarcus Cousins versus Chris Paul. Grant.
You know what? I'm gonna go with my gut feeling and take Cousins.
Okay. I'm going to go with Chris Paul, but both obviously are decent options. Kevin Love versus Al Jefferson.
I would have gone Love going into the show, but with the knowledge that I don't know who was in the chat, but the tip that Love said he was tired, and the fact that he didn't play that well yesterday, which lines up with that, I'm gonna take the consistent guy that Scott's been touting here and go with Al Jefferson in that matchup. I think that just based on what was that logic actually makes sense to me. Maybe it shouldn't, but he did have a somewhat disappointing game yesterday. So it's a back-to-back. So I'll take Jefferson. Which I also think is where Scott didn't want you to go, and that's kind of why. I think that you look at that matchup. You can say whatever you want, but Love is just so tempting there that there's obviously a reason you put those two guys head to head. And I think that if you want 100K, so I try to get into your head. I think that maybe Jefferson's a good play.
Yeah, you have basically Kevin Love says he's being sick, but Paul Pierce diagnosed it as Pierce-itis. Did you read this, Scott?
Yeah, I read that. I laughed last night, even though Kevin Love was on every single one of my teams yesterday.
Oh, man, Pierce-itis. So, yeah, I guess I would go with Al Jefferson as the safe play. But, man, Kevin Love, this is one of those games where you get factors that, like, make you not want to play someone, and then they just go off. Like that
Kevin Love does that more than anyone in the league, I feel like.
Like that Kevin Love game earlier this year where he supposedly had a bad ankle and then scored 60 fantasy points.
There's been multiple times this year where there's like these reports that are like Kevin Love's a true game time decision tonight, and then he like walks out there and he's like, "Oh, of course I'm playing," and then puts up 30 and 17.
Joakim versus Paul Millsap.
I think Noah has more points at the end of the day.
This is a tough one. Scott has made this one a tough one. I will go with I'll go with Noah too, just for since we went Al Jeff, might as well go consistent. DeAndre Jordan versus Tyreek Evans, and yes, Tyreek Evans is in a revenge game, as is Brandon Jennings, but at the end of the season, I don't think those revenge games mean quite as much as they do at the beginning of the season.
I think this is probably the most impressive matchup that's put on here because I happen to like the opportunities that both players are presented with tonight. I'm going to go with Jordan on the fact that, as you mentioned, Scott, there's a lot more around DeAndre than Tyreek right now, and I just think that I say this every time you're doing these games. I think you got to take the guy that's going to have more points more than half the time. That's kind of the way it's set up. So my guess is that Jordan has more points more than 50% of the time. But for people saying salary cap games, I'm not sure I'd take Jordan over Evans for the sole fact that Evans' ceiling in a tournament tonight is really, really high.
So
but I'm not sure if that does anything for this.
Play him in a max. DeAndre Jordan, I would agree with that, but that one's a tough one. The next one was Burks versus Adrian, and for me, that's Adrian. But I know that I've seen some people that do like Burks tonight. I just would rather have Adrian against Detroit. So there you go.
Come on, that matchup.
Well, Scott always has to do one gross matchup to end.
Come on, man.
To end you can't feel good about it at all. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that's a trap. Like, I do believe it. Burks is in a really good matchup against the Knicks, and Adrian's been disappointing. So I'm going to go on the other side and say Burks. But, I mean, it's, as I said, like, okay, there's just so much variance there with both guys that I feel like
I played both those guys over the weekend, and they both got me good on Saturday and Sunday.
You're trying to punish everybody else.
Like, one of those guys could have 5 fantasy points.
And they did on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just I don't feel confident. I probably won't roll either guy out in cash games tonight because who would need to. But I'll just guess Burks. Cause I like the New York-Utah game we didn't talk about, but I feel like actually it's a decent place for value on both sides.
It is. Yeah.
We didn't talk about it at all, but it's like it's something. I have to look at it more, but and Gordon Hayward could jump into play tonight. All the bigs on Utah. Like, I love guys who are underpriced because their team sucks. When they play a team that also sucks, that means that they all of a sudden are actually like it raises their value. So I always love to target games like that, and it's not like slow paced. So
all right, so
Cantor has been coming up as a value for me like every day for like 2 months, and his price doesn't change. Yeah. And I haven't been playing him enough. He's been really, really good.
Yeah, the Utah Jazz actually have a foundation of players that aren't that bad.
Well, and they're giving them minutes too. I mean, that's the big thing is they're all getting minutes. So is Gordon?
Yeah, they're doing the same thing the Sixers are, where they're just playing their like young guys all the way through the game, no matter what the score of the game is.
Yeah, and that's there's something to be said.
They need guards bad. If the Jazz get guards via free agency or the draft, and can add some depth, that team won't be as terrible as they are right now.
Let's be honest. They need to replace Richard Jefferson before they do anything else.
Yeah, I mean, but Hayward can also play the 3, so it just depends on where you want to play Hayward. And
they need to replace John Lucas
but,
the third before they do anything else. That's what they need to do. But Gordon Hayward, is he in play then, as far as shooting guard goes? Or Tim Hardaway on the other side? We're talking about looking for that other shooting guard.
I don't mind Hayward tonight. Like Grant said, the Knicks haven't been good against guards. I like both Hayward and Burks quite a bit, actually.
I think that they're both. I can't play Trey Burke anymore. Like, that's just Trey Burke, ship has sailed. I'm not interested. But I think that I agree. Burks can get minutes off the bench, and he has some reasonable usage when he plays. And Hayward is absolutely in play because whenever the Utah Jazz are in a minus matchup in general, not even positionally, when they play a worse team, Hayward seems to play better. So that's just the kind of pattern I've noticed. So I try to use Hayward on games like this when I'm going to, because his price kind of hovers probably $1,000 lower than it should be in these kind of matchups. So it's a plus matchup, and I wouldn't rule out, like you said, Cantor and Favors aren't worth ruling out. And on the Knicks, like Carmelo is absolutely. We haven't talked about him, but it's a close spread against a shitty team, and Carmelo Anthony can score. Like, yeah, he's a guy that I'm not sure I'm saying lock, but he could have as many points as Chris Paul tonight. Like, it's very possible that he could. I'm not saying he will, but for a 10-game slate, it's just worth keeping an eye on.
Scott, that was for you. I took my last swig of water because I saw we had matching cups.
Oh, looking good.
Go. And that's what we're going to do. We are going to go on this show. So, guys, appreciate you being on. We're going to have Drew Dinkmeyer and Mike Leone from Redo Experts on the next segment. I want to thank Scott for being a fill-in replacement. Davis Maddock will be back in 2 weeks. So he's doing all
Where's he at?
He's doing all this college stuff. So,
oh, man.
Yeah. So he's going to be done with his undergrad, though. Pretty much all the major stuff. So in 2 weeks, Davis Maddock will be a thing, as he likes to say. So
you're gonna go full degen.
He is.
I'm nervous for him, man.
He has been missed greatly.
I'm a little bit nervous for Davis. I miss him on the shows. Although I gotta tell you, man, everyone should be thanking Davis for taking his time off because, as I said, the Davis took the time off. Then Scott and Knapp hosted the 2 shows with me after, and then the week, on Wednesday, they both take down the 2 big tournaments. So clearly, Davis could argue he lost himself $150,000 and he hosted those 2 shows. I can't prove it that he didn't. I mean,
You can't prove anything, Grant, because it's not
can't.
factual. It's me. I am the link there. I'm the link.
Why?
I'm the one who
You've hosted
said.
shows with happened, Scott, all year. The change was made, and all of a sudden,
No,
I'm just saying.
Scott said, like, I told Scott on Wednesday that he was going to win a lot of money. I did not specify 100,000, but I knew he was going to win a lot of money, and he won the most money. So
I'm just waiting for that Twitter handle to come with the underscore in it, Dave.
will never happen. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Shout out to DraftDay and Scott for joining us, and Grant from the Fantasy Elite app. Stick around. We are going to switch shows, and then we'll be right back shortly. Thanks.
Stay tuned in. Don't leave the chat. I'll talk to you if you're lonely.
No, you will not. I am not leaving you alone with the chat, Grant. Not
Hang
happening.
out. All right. I think we're off.